Last week, I was asked to speak on a panel at the International Association of Culinary Professionals in Portland around the idea of marketing your brand with online video. And I was on the panel with other people in the culinary and video kind of industry and field. And I was the representation from the agency side, both from a marketing and communication side. So the perspective that I brought really was the way that we look at video, and the point really was video is a great medium. It can do a lot, and I think that we're in a time where we're shifting from video as a nice to have to video as a must have. Certainly in a lot of cases, it just as a medium and as a delivery mechanism for content, it really is effective. But at the end of the day, the way that we look at video is it's just another piece of content. So, and it's only half of the story. It's merging the content with the other part, which is the context, the relationship, the engagement, whatever goes around the video, whatever goes around that piece of content whenever it is distributed and consumed by the audience. So I spoke a lot about that kind of combination and just the way that we look at that. And it's important to understand, really, one of the reasons that we look at that is because everything is evolving in this digital landscape that we're operating in, beginning with communications. Everything communication related is evolving. We've gone from a traditional broadcast kind of communication model where everything was centralized and deployed, kind of cast a wide net. It's a closed communication model, to something that is open and networked. The control is totally decentralized. Everything is connected. And speaking of that wide net, now instead of casting the wide net to reach a number of people, the old model was really to broadcast to 1 million to engage with 100. The new model really is to engage with the right 10 people who can then engage with the right 1,000, who can then engage with 10,000, who can then engage with 1 million. Just getting back to the point that everything really is connected, and because it's connected, the thinking has changed in the way that we actually distribute communications. This really this data should not be a surprise to anyone. It really just kind of personifies the decline in communications, particularly print, and kind of highlights some of the data around this new world that we live in. 70 million videos on YouTube, 133 million blogs on Technorati, 1.7 billion tweets on Twitter, 400 million users on Facebook, representing 170 countries. It just is. It's vast. It is the new world here. In addition to the communications evolving, the platforms are evolving too, and this is just as much about connectivity as it is literally the platforms, from laptops to netbooks to iPads and iPods to the mobile device. The connectiveness of all of these platforms really is important to understand. I mean, not only is the content produced by everyone and it really isn't controlled by anyone, there's a connected ecosystem now in which everything is operating in. The content itself is evolving. We have anything, speaking of video, we have anything from highly produced brand-generated content to very shoestring budget, lowly produced user-generated content, and everything in between. And there's a place for all of that. It really is understanding what the best place for each, given the circumstance, the objectives, again, the context that it is going to be consumed in and distributed in. So in video, today we are talking about video. At IACP, we talked about video, but to us, it's just another piece of content. I'm going to call it an object. It's just another object. It's in the world we operate, it's just another social object. But so is the comments on that video, so are photos, so are blogs, so are tweets, so are brand generated written content, status updates, anything really. It's just another piece of content. And actually, you know, there are many pieces of content for any brand that we support, any brand that's out there. It's a vast kind of network of content that is distributed. So the interesting thing about content really is if you think of it in this way, the only way that it can be measured really is in reach, the number of eyeballs that see it. We obviously want as many people to see it as possible. We want to extend that reach. You know, it's the analogy that I like to make is about social objects is just like a business card. So think of this video just like my business card. You know, I can get my business card produced, designed, highly produced. It looks very nice. It has an impression whenever I hand it over to people that is probably very positive with the way that it is produced. Or I could spend a fraction of the cost and get it made very simply. It might not look as highly produced, but in the end, it really accomplishes the same objective to provide my information to people. I want to hand my business card to as many people as I can. I want to extend the reach, and then my hope is that they would probably pass that on to many of their colleagues. But in the end, I want to give that to as many people as possible. There's another side of that really, and that's what I really hope to have happen with that business card. What I hope to have happen with that business card is that someone will reach out to me and we'll start to form a relationship. We'll engage with each other, and that's the other piece of this puzzle. That's the context piece of this puzzle. I want to understand, number one, I want a relationship with people based on the content that I actually produce and kind of distribute out to the ecosystem. There's got to be some sort of engagement back and forth that surrounds that for it to really be truly effective. And, you know, the thing about relationships is relationships grow. It's not necessarily about how many relationships you have. It's about how strong are those relationships. And the dichotomy here is that we need social objects to actually form those relationships with audience members on behalf of brands. So, you know, the objects are very, very important, but it's about producing the most meaningful objects to create the strongest relationships and to hit people in the most meaningful ways. By themselves, the objects and the relationships, as you can see here, whenever they operate independently, they can only be so great. They can only do so much. I can reach many people with my objects, but if there's not that proper context around it, then I'm kind of doing a disservice to the brand. Likewise, if I'm trying to grow relationships without the right objects, again, I can only be so effective. Really, the true kind of nirvana for brands is to find a happy medium and the cohesive point for those. It's about producing the right amount of social objects that reach a number of people in the right ways, so together you're growing instead of independently you're growing. You know, this is not an easy thing to do. We operate in this world every single day, and just as I said earlier in the presentation, everything is evolving, from the way that we communicate to people, to the platforms in which we communicate with them, and kind of how everything is connected, to the content that we communicate with and through. So, you know, it's about asking yourself every single day, you know, how is this, whenever I create this piece of content, how are people actually going to consume it? How am I going to distribute it? Where all am I going to distribute it? Where is it going to be shared on? Because chances are, once you produce it and send it out into the ecosystem, then it's going to take on a life of its own. This presentation, you know, I showed a couple of examples of how we've actually done this here at Fleischmann Hillard. and merging the content and the context. I'm not including that in these particular presentation. If you have any questions on those or want to see some of those examples, please let me know. This presentation will be available for you to download here. If you have any questions on the presentation, just shoot me an email, 11thscreen@gmail.com. Otherwise, I look forward to engaging with you more as we move on. Thanks a lot.